Hello and welcome back to another video. It's been a while since I've been able to actually record my process, so I kept mulling it over and thinking about really cool things to do and just kept stalling. I had too many options, so I ended up not picking anything. I ended up with this quick and easy haunted house idea. It might be a little early on in the year for a haunted house, but the stores are bringing in Halloween stuff, and I've been getting pretty excited for fall. I started out drawing a house that was a bit more realistic, but ended up going in for something a bit more playful. You can see that I started out with a really rough sketch, and I'm just spending some time here cleaning it up. I've been trying different ways of sketching, and I've learned that quickly scribbling out shapes and later refining them bit by bit works a lot better for me than just going right in with solid structures. What has helped me recently has actually been sketching hard edge stuff like cars and houses, rather than organic shapes like life drawing. This is pretty much the opposite of what anyone recommends, but I've never really enjoyed drawing characters, and I've been lucky enough to do some prop and asset design recently, which was much more enjoyable to me. I'm certainly not dismissing the importance of needing that organic mindset too, especially if you're trying to get into something like character design. For me, I enjoy the strict geometry of houses and cars, and it even helps me understand the graphic design side of things a little bit better. I usually go for colors that are heavily contrasted, and usually purple with orange. I love that color combo, and that palette would have been appropriately Halloweenish for this, but I like to try and find colors that are a bit more unexpected. You can see that it takes me a while to play with the color comps and test out different ways to tackle this. Sometimes it's easy to get caught up in trying to pick just the right colors or just the right elements for a piece, but when that happens, it's important to take a step back and realize that sometimes the goal is to get something done. Even if it doesn't end up being the absolute best, having a finished project that you can learn from is better than having tons of unfinished ideas and sketches that you just keep waffling over. To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the colors that I picked for this one, but I wanted to try a more monochromatic look since that's not what I normally do, and I wanted to experiment. I learned a lot by doing this. I think I would push away from this narrow green palette and push the blues and yellows a little more. By expanding the colors but keeping close to green, I would stay away from the harsh contrasts that I usually go for, but still allow for a nice range of colors which would help bring that house out from the background and give your eye a little bit more to chew on. Doing color flats is another part of my process that I've been changing and learning about recently. For this piece, I stuck with my old way of doing it, which is to draw the outline, fill with the paint bucket, and refine. In Photoshop, the annoying part about doing it this way is that the paint bucket doesn't fill to the edge, so you have to go back in and color over the inner edge that forms. I've seen a few ways to get around this, and I want to play with those, see if any of those work for me. The other way I've done sometimes is to take the sketch into Illustrator and do color flats as vector shapes and bring it back into Photoshop. I don't like doing that because I like the feeling of drawing in Photoshop a lot better, and I don't like the crisp edges that Illustrator pumps out. But it is a much more efficient way of tackling that part of the process, which is why a lot of artists choose to work that way. I'll take a step back here and explain what color flats are, just in case. Color flats are pretty much what they sound like. They are chunks of color that you'll need, completely flat, no value. Some artists like to work with them all on the same layer, but in very starkly contrasting colors, almost a neon palette. So they can go in with the wand tool later on and color over the areas on separate layers later. I don't like working that way because it's usually more efficient for me to just start with them on separate layers, and because I like working with a brush that has a little bit more texture. Those textured edges don't do well with the wand tool. You get bands of unwanted colors at the edges of your selections when you do that. Flats make things easy when it comes to color because you can also lock the transparency of the layers and color over what you've got without being precious about the edges. Some artists use clipping masks for this. I don't do that because it creates more layers and clutters up the file a bit more. It also makes changes a bit more difficult, and I found that what I do usually isn't detailed enough to warrant adding a clipping mask. I use them when I'm adding something risky, or I create a new layer, go to the one that I want to use as a mask, hover over that little thumbnail you see in the Layers panel, and Control-click on the picture. it selects that area for you. On the new layer, you can color to your heart's content. It has the same effects as a clipping mask without the need to be linked to that original layer. If the marching ants outline annoys you, Control H will hide it. Just remember that you did that and deselect with Control D if you're trying to color outside the selection again and it's not working. Getting into shading is when things start to get fun for me, especially if the piece has strong lighting. This one wasn't quite as playful due to the monochromatic palette, and I didn't make the lighting that dramatic. A few times you can see I play around with the overlay options to see if maybe I should make the house a different color, but by that point I had already committed to the green on green, and the quick changes weren't really fixing it how I would have wanted. I actually used the same brush for the sketch, color flats, and lighting, but I just changed the settings on it depending on what I was doing. For the color flats, I went into the settings and turned off the transfer option. This is the setting that changes how opaque your brush is based on your pen pressure. I needed it off to get solid lines, and for that same reason, I turned the opacity of the brush all the way up to 100%. For the other parts, the sketching, shading, and lighting, I turned that transfer option back on and played with the opacity of the brush itself, depending on how strong I wanted it to be. The brush is lightly textured, so it works well for giving me lines that aren't too harsh, and it does well to give me some nice shading. In the end, I throw some textures on there, and a lighting layer, which helps even out the colors of the piece, make it feel more cohesive, and bring a little bit of a tint to it. That just about does it for this piece. I hope to be able to make more videos for you guys really soon, but I don't know what life is going to throw at me next. I've noticed quite a few more of you guys have subscribed now, so hello to all of you, and thank you very much for watching. If you have any ideas what you'd like to see me draw or discuss, let me know in the comments. You can follow me on Instagram, where I post a little bit more often since I don't always have a chance to make videos for each piece. If you'd like to see more videos, hit the subscribe button. Thanks again for watching. See you next time.